Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to Malice Reviews, even though I'm not dressed up like Malice this week. Again, joining me for this review episode is Erin Romeo Moonberg.
Hello!
Hello. And once again we are talking about Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Well, this is our first time talking about Beyond Thunderdome, but we are talking about Mad Max once again.
Yeah. As much as I still declare that there are no horrible Mad Max movies, I have to agree, however, that Thunderdome is kind of a weak link, and I think today we finally figured out why. But we will be discussing that later. First, we're going to have to start off, of course, with our usual plot summary. So here goes as quickly as I can. Max Rockatansky is still wandering the wasteland. It seems that over time, despite losing his vehicle and his dog, he has gotten himself another vehicle and is actually using camels to pull it for whatever awkward reason. And it seems to me, at least, that he's become sort of a merchant or something along those likes. Essentially just traveling around, living off the land, etc., etc. But obviously, even being a merchant, things aren't going to be easy, and he has been protecting himself up till this point, until he is suddenly ambushed by the pilot, who seems to be the same gyro chopper pilot captain from number 2. It's definitely the same actor. Whether or not it's the same character is questionable, but he still seems very similar either way, and obviously him and Max connect pretty quickly when they actually see eye to eye again at the end of the movie. That aside, he is ambushed by people he doesn't know offhand and is forced to follow after it on foot, to which he is apparently oddly barefoot while he was directing the camels. But one of the things that falls off his caravan truck is a pair of boots with a whistle on it, which he also gives a blow to for whatever reason. And he continues to follow tracks which lead him to a town called Buttertown. Therein, he is trying to find the people responsible for his theft of his goods. He butters his skills in order to try and find them, to which one of the leaders, Auntie, is also looking for someone to help her out a bit. One of their own, known as Blaster and Master, have been a royal pain in her side for quite some time, and she is trying to figure out a way to quietly deal with him. Max is tested upon meeting Auntie, to which he defends himself from a number of guards, as well as one of the heads of the bartering. He is the only person to have apparently survived the test up to this point, so they pretty much consider him to be skilled enough to possibly get the job done. They then show him Blaster and Master, or Blaster Master for short for the rest of this review. And he decides that he needs to get a bit closer and have a look and see if he can find any weak spots. While there, his truck is brought in. Apparently, Blaster Master bought it, and they need the explosives turned off. to which Max admits that it's his vehicle, but won't help them until he is more or less forced to, due to the fact that Blaster is such a powerful, large human being in of itself. And he is forced to turn off the bomb, but this also starts up an alarm signal in his car, which causes Blaster to keel over in pain because of apparently the echo in his helmet. Testing out a whistle before leaving, he finds out that it's also a definite weakness for Blaster and quickly runs off. A little time later, he is told that in order to try and get everything back, in order to get rid of Blaster, they need him to pick a fight. And when fights are picked within Bartertown, instead of letting them be, they are all forced to partake in what is known as Thunderdome. So Max willingly picks a fight with Blaster Master. He is then told he has to fight Blaster in the Thunderdome. Manages to do so using the whistle in order to make him keel over, but upon removing his helmet, he realizes that Blaster is actually a mentally challenged person. To which he doesn't have the heart in it to hurt Blaster anymore, because what the hell's the point? It's not even that strong of a person normally outside of the heavy gear and so forth that he's been wielding. To which he backs out of the deal, but because he backed out of a deal in Bartertown, that's still considered a bad move, so he is forced to face the Wheel. The Wheel then, by random chance, has him go out to the desert and deal with his luck out there. He manages to survive long enough for apparently the monkey that was also part of his caravan to escape from Bartown with water, and manages to help nurse Max to enough health that he could at least keep going for a little while longer. He then encounters some wild tribal kids who have apparently crashed out deep into the desert a long time ago, and they proclaim him to be Captain Walker, a hero of their own mythos, because apparently Walker and a number of the other adults that used to harbor these children went off to try and find help and further civilization, but never came back. To which it's mostly just been these kids slowly growing up for supposedly the last 15 or so years. It's because that's how much time has passed between the two movies. The kids decide that even if Max isn't Captain Walker, they want to still try and get out of being trapped in that valley. They happen into Bartown, to which Max decides if they're going to happen to stay in Bartown, they need to protect themselves, so they decide to help the Master escape, because he's being held there because he knows how to run the machines that keep the power to the city. They escape with him, causing the power to go out, and the entire city, guards included, chase after Max and the others. They encounter the Sky Captain again, force him to take everyone into his new airplane, and Max has to also sacrifice himself to Bartown's hordes in order to try and make sure that everyone else can make their escape. He is actually not killed on sight, as Auntie just kind of laughs him off as being Raggedy Man again, and just trucks off. Not much she can really do, since she just lost the only thing she cared about with this particular group of people. Meanwhile, the kids and the captain finally find what is left of one of the bigger cities, presumably again in Australia, and decide to start building a civilization over again there. And to which we are brought back into a narration by the older of the girls, who is now holding a baby, that she's been one of the keepers that keeps the track of everything that has gone on in their deep past, and that the reason why they stayed here is not only because they missed being in a civilized place again, but also because they want to keep the lights on in the hopes that Max and any others like him out there still can find their way home someday. The end.
And a very happy ending it was.
For some people.
Yeah.
Poor Max
It
is
was
still
pretty...
on his own again.
Yeah, poor Max. And also Finn McCoo, who apparently got sucked into the sand.
Yeah, he didn't live very long. I'm pretty sure by the time night fell, he was probably already suffocated by sand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a thing.
Shall we go through like the differences between this movie and the previous movies, or?
Yeah, we should definitely talk about the difference in feel, and probably before we go into final opinions, mention the fact of what we figured out might be the leading cause of this being such a different movie compared to the rest of the franchise.
Mhm.
So let's start with Max, for instance. He's pretty much lost almost all of the police leathers now.
Yeah. He's also no. I don't know. I was gonna say he's also lost some of his edge too, but maybe
Uh,
not quite that much.
Not
He manages
quite.
to stay alive.
Yeah, he's still got enough of his edge that he can at least survive against most normal people.
Mhm.
But he's nowhere near as fast, and he's nowhere near as cutthroat as he has been in previous movies.
Mhm. He's getting worn out.
Hmm.
Like he's an old man now.
Yeah, it's been 15
Well,
years of this shit.
at least as his gray sideburns would tell you.
Yeah, as they keep adding more and more to his gray sideburns with every movie.
Mhm.
Um, also, out of the Mad Max movies, this is probably the one with the most quotes out of it too.
Yeah.
Not entirely sure what happened with the writing, but the dialogue itself got an interesting boost in quality.
Yeah, it's the dialogue is a bit better, but the overall story is still kind of,
I think
I
I
don't
think the
know.
overall story kind of stagnated
Yeah,
a bit.
it kind of got old. It's definitely held back by the fact that it's a PG-13 movie and not a rated R movie.
Yes, that's the number one thing that really held us back from the start is that they couldn't show as much as they could in the last couple of movies.
Yeah, cause like the last couple of movies aren't truly gory or anything like that, but it's they were shocking.
They're
They were
shocking, and
certainly
they had
shocking.
bloody parts here and there.
And some people would classify them as exploitative movies or exploitation films.
To an extent, yes. Again, because of its low budget nature.
Hmm. This one, I think a lot of this was pretty much a Hollywood movie, as far
Yeah,
as I
this
can
one was the
tell.
most Hollywood out of the trilogy, and I think that's also kind of the reason why it lost its teeth a little bit.
Yeah, it's very spit polished. It's polished feeling as far as a post-apocalyptic vibe goes.
Hmm.
There's much more intricate set designs. Even some of the costuming is a little bit more detailed, particularly Auntie Entity's costume, which is pretty much iconic of post-apocalyptic movies. Certainly see it parodied everywhere. Very
Yes, it
80s.
was a very flashy outfit. What can you say?
Of course, Tina Turner herself is very 70s and 80s, so
Hmm.
she's very
She
iconic.
herself, yeah, was essentially Lady Gaga of her time.
Hmm. So yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting experience. I grew up watching this film. It was the kid-friendly Mad Max movie that we were allowed to watch when
Yeah,
I was growing up. So,
I'm trying
and
to
for the
remember the first
longest
time I
time,
saw this. It must have been in my very early teens. I think I might have seen this one, at
hmm
least parts and pieces.
yeah, but this was the first Mad Max movie I watched. I didn't see the previous two until I was in my teens. Yeah, this one I watched when I was 5 years old.
I might have seen segments in my preteens and again into early teens, but like I said before, I think it was 13 or 14 when I actually noticed that this was part of a huge series and that there was these uncut videotapes and there's this major prequel that I've never seen before and it's unrated so my mom can't say no.
Yeah.
And the local store after moving out here happened to have a copy of it, so
Hmm.
yeah, that happened.
Well, we should also, one thing I mentioned, in trying to appeal to a mass market audience, they had to really kind of they really tried to sell this movie. They had Tina Turner in there. They had the bigger budget.
They had her music in there.
They had her music. They also tried. It seemed to me like they tried to play down the accents a little bit. You hear a lot of like English type of accents, like what you'd hear in Britain, but no hard. You do hear some hardcore Australian accents too, especially with the
Yeah.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the whole area with the kids, and they're because they're not just speaking Australian English, they're speaking Australian English with a isolated lingo in there
Lingo,
too.
yeah. It's because essentially these kids have been on their own for a really long time, so of course they start gradually making their own shorthand. Any group does.
Yeah, or dialect, I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of it's to the point where some Australians might have some problems understanding what they're saying.
From time to
And
time.
as someone pointed out before, it was an international flight, so it's not just it's not just English language that got mixed in with their vocabulary. It's probably a variety of different languages too.
Yeah, wasn't the record that they had French?
Yeah, they had a record that was supposed to be it was a French tutorial
Mm-hmm.
on vinyl. So,
So that probably got mixed in with everything else a little bit.
yep.
Um. So I guess should we say what we found out?
Yes, probably.
So the major uncovery that we found out is at the very end of the movie. There's a in memory of tidbit. I'm trying to remember what it was. Byron.
For Byron, yes.
So what ends up is that this is in memory of Byron Kennedy. I believe he was actually he was a producer, I think, for at least Mad Max 2, if not also Mad Max 1, and he was going to be producer again for this movie. He was actually out in a helicopter doing scouting for the movie for Thunderdome when his helicopter crashed and he died in the crash. George Miller thereafter lost a lot of interest in continuing the movie, but did so anyways in memory of Byron since he died trying to get this thing ready anyways. And the rest of the movie went to George Ogilvy. Ogilvy. I don't know how to pronunciate that. Ogilvie.
Ogilvy?
Ogilvy?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just
The other George.
the other George. Yeah, I'd be better off calling him that. And also, the rest of the writing went to Terry Hayes. George Miller would actually stay out and to at least direct the action sequences, which is why I think under the short amount of time he probably had to prep things. He more or less borrowed from Mad Max 2, and he kind of thought, well, if we really do continue, I'll try to come up with something better later. Because again, he probably went through a shit ton of crap before having to sit down and film these portions of this movie. So I think he just kind of let things fly, and even if he didn't mean to, which is why I'm kind of hoping that the next movie is going to be a bit better now. Because
Yeah.
I can totally understand with the useless input from Hollywood making this first of all into a more merchandisable movie and cutting out half the things that made the previous movies what they were, and then that toppled over with the mixed emotions about losing a close friend who was helping you with this franchise, and then having to deal with everything that entails, and then having to still come back and still do some work on this thing that you got started. Just must have been pulling out his hair.
Yeah, so it's you could probably say that part of this movie died with Byron Kennedy. So
A
that's why
reasonable
it's
chunk of
kind
it,
of,
yes.
yeah, a good chunk of it. They did try. They did try. I remember really enjoying this movie when I was a kid. Watching it now with a more critical eye, I can see that there were definite flaws to it. It's a little too slapstick.
It's a little too slapstick. It's a little too, I guess the word would be silly. I would almost try to say
Yeah, a little
campy, but
too
at the same
silly.
time, campy can be still really good. This one
Yeah.
just gets a little too silly. It gets a little too into itself.
Yeah, it goes from satire in the first film, over the dystopian government, to post-apocalypse in the second film, still probably with some small amount of satire.
And then it
Um,
goes into complete shtick of everything that
yeah,
happened in the second movie. So
exactly.
mm,
So
it kind of does fly in the face of the previous movie, and then borrows almost everything from it too at the same time.
a lot of the car crashes seem to be kind of duplicated, or I wouldn't say phoned in, but they
They
some of them
obviously
are
still
pretty
had to put a
good.
lot of effort just to make them happen again, but yeah, it just feels very samey. You kind of see these car crashes and you kind of go, "Didn't we see this set up before?"
This is we've seen this before, though. I mean, I enjoyed the part where Iron Bar, who is Auntie Entity's main henchman, number
Hmm.
one henchman, he his car explodes and he winds up gripping a hold onto the front of the train. Or no, he's on the front of the train, and
Yeah.
a car smashes into him. And
Well, he's actually on the car when it explodes, and then he's just
oh
on the front of the train after the
oh yeah,
explosion, just covered in ash.
it was just so silly. It just kind of slipped my mind. Yeah, it's just like, wait a second, didn't something like that kill Wes in the last movie?
The exact same crash killed two people who were the main bad guys in the previous movie. Yes.
Yes, Wes and Lord Humongous. Wasn't Lord Humongous the one driving the car into the semi that killed
Hmm.
Wes?
Yep.
Yeah, so it also
So
kind
you
of
just
flies.
made fun of your own major bad guy death from the last movie. How proud do you feel?
Yeah,
Ugh. And then we get
I don't
even
know.
more shtick with Ironbar as he has to jump over these little things on the side of a bridge, and then in the end they just cut off the pole that he's hanging from
Yeah,
in the
they
first
saw off
place.
the pipe. It's a pipe because it's got steam coming out of it because they're on a steam locomotive.
Hmm. And then somehow he manages to get another vehicle, is in it by himself, and then crashes with Max, and that's what finally kills him.
Yeah,
But not after first pawing at the kabuki mask that he's been having on his outfit the entire time, and then flipping the camera the bird.
yeah. It's as a kid it was funny, but
Yeah,
it's funny and enjoyable.
as like early teens, totally hilarious.
Mhm.
But as adults, having seen the rest of this franchise, this thing kind of stands out as what the hellery from everything else. I mean, we can follow the evolution from 1 to 2, but from 2 to 3,
Yeah, it's um again, Randy mentioned that if you went from Mad Max 1 to this movie, you'd be lost. It's just like, where does all this factor into each other?
yeah, where the hell did everything just come from all at once?
Mhm.
It was such a huge jump in logic, and it's still a bit of a jump even from 1 to this, from 2 to this. But the fact that some of it borrows so much from 2, you kind of sort of see a little bit of it.
Mhm. Yeah, you can tell, and I do kind of feel sorry knowing what I know now. It's, again, research is your friend.
Yeah,
So,
it's also a twist in the gut.
yeah, and it explains a lot. So, if the
So very,
director
very
is
much.
if the main driving force behind the movie franchise has kind of lost interest in it, you can usually tell pretty well.
Yeah, and
So,
George Miller really lost his thumb on this one, so that's why I'm hoping that the last 10 to 20 years have kind of gotten him back on the ball. Actually, now it's
yeah.
almost 30 years, isn't it? Yeah, this came out in 85, right?
1985, yes.
Oh my god, this came out the year I was born.
It came out when I turned 4-ish, I think.
This
I was born in 81, but
this came out the year I was born, so he's had 30 years to warm up for a sequel.
yeah.
Oh, well, now it's better time than never.
Mhm. Well, and they've also kind of struggled for a while to get Fury Road off the ground, didn't they?
Yeah,
Like,
I
I remember
believe
it being.
actually in the early 90s they were actually going to get it off the ground, but I forget what happened, but there's some sort of like fight that broke out, like wartime fight that broke out. And for
Mm,
whatever reason, Australia was sort of involved, which is why they couldn't have a mass amount of people fly out to Australia anymore at the time. So,
mm.
like, over half the people they were trying to get there couldn't get there no matter what. So they literally just had to up and cancel it.
Well, it wasn't the Falklands War.
I'm not
not
sure
not
what it
to be
was.
not to be too non sequitory, but Top Gear is my friend with educational means.
Oh, education from Top Gear. Oh my.
Yeah, that's kind of scares me now.
So
But
I
yeah,
will talk
so
about the background of the movie done. I guess it's time to talk about our favorite moments.
our favorite moments. Okay.
Um, I guess I'll go first this time. Lots of really good things here and there. Like for everything that went wrong, there's at least a few little scattered gems and stuff. And if nothing else, the quote scenes are worthwhile mentioning.
Mhm.
And the one that kind of always stuck with me, no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah. That's the same quote from uh Buckaroo Banzai. If
Hmm.
you've ever seen the Buckaroo Banzai movie, he does the same quote, and I'm pretty sure that it's a quote that's existed for quite a long time now.
Yeah, I have
Although,
Buckaroo Banzai, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I've had it
yeah,
for a couple of years now.
exactly. And he's at I believe he's at a press conference, and they ask him what it was like to travel into the eighth dimension. He's like, "Well, just remember, no matter where you are, or
Where
no
you
matter
go,
where
there
you
you
go,
are.
there you are." Yep.
Alrighty. Any favorite moment you have?
Um, Mine is not a quotey moment. Mine is more of the atmosphere of Bartertown. So like when they
Mm,
first introduced Bartertown and like a lot of the subsequent scenes, up through their battle in Thunderdome. That's that whole section of the movie I enjoy greatly,
that
especially
is a pretty strong section of the film, yes.
mhm. That part of the film really kind of it actually does feel like a Mad Max movie.
For that particular portion, yes.
Mhm.
It's not until a little bit afterwards that it starts to kind of lose it for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Ironically, more so than the car chase scenes. So, go
Yeah,
figure. It feels more post-apocalyptic. There's more a sense of desperation, a sense of some kind of salvation, but not much like what we had with the oil refinery. There is civilization there,
mm-hmm.
but it's
It's very hokey pokey,
yeah, it's not quite what you're looking for still.
but it's better than just being out there.
Mhm. Kind of like this movie. It's kind of a hokey pokey movie, but it's better than no Mad Max movie, right?
Exactly. That's exactly why Thunderdome still exists, and that's why we still acknowledge it. Unlike a certain other franchise, Highlander.
sometimes it's better not to have a movie.
Sometimes it's
Sometimes,
better to wait for a better sequel to come along,
yeah, no movie is a better movie.
especially in the case of the later ones.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, the franchise just went so far downhill. Oh, so speaking of things going downhill, bad moments. Oh god,
Hmm.
I'm trying to summarize bad things. Um,
Hmm.
I think the number one thing is to probably mention the disappointment. Looking at this with a very close examining eye, one of the things that we always praised both of the previous movies is the fact that things got really interesting and unique, especially with their designs and so forth. You
Hmm.
could tell things apart. You could, even if they're not just your basic black and white dress up gimmicks, the fact
Hmm.
that you could actually tell vehicles apart and you instantly knew at least one out of the three people who were most likely on that vehicle with just an offhand thought made the previous movies so much better. in particular with this movie, we got two really bad designs. We got really bad vehicle designs, and we got really bad costumes, in particular for the children in this movie.
Mm,
Just bland and awful.
yeah.
The cars all looked extremely samey, except for maybe two or three of them. It looks like the rest of them were in the midst of being made, and then they just decided, oh, fuck it, we'll just throw a tarp over it for the rest of them, and they're just a bunch of guard vehicles.
Yeah.
Just boring. And then we
Very.
got all these tribe kids who are more or less in these, I guess you would call them loincloth-esque
I
caveman
noticed that too. Like,
costumes.
there's a lot of bare legs. It's just like, well, I guess it is kind of hot, and
It's
you're not really.
Australia, yeah. You're gonna you don't want to be covered up as much as Max is, because I'm pretty sure Mel Gibson must have been going through a gallon of water a day.
Yeah, and there isn't a lot of brush except for down in their little oasis area.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be scratching your legs on, broken
Much
up
of
trees and
anything,
stuff
yeah.
like that, like you would if you were in an actual forest where you'd want to wear pants. So I guess it makes sense, but it was also kind of creepy. It's just like,
Just a wee bit
hmm,
awkward.
a little awkward to see all these children running around in loincloths and or loincloth-like clothing, especially Slake Mathurst. Slake was he was an older child, so it wasn't quite as creepy, but it was still he
Still, you
got
got
the
this young man
he
in
got
pretty
the
much nothing but the tiny loincloth, and it's just like,
yeah,
whoa,
he
dude,
got
hey, dude.
he got the short end of the loincloth stick.
Hey, now, man, I know you don't need anything up here, but you might want a little extra down there.
Yeah.
The children don't
Um
want to see your dongle.
But on the other hand, you had the design for Screw Loose, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we did get a few other interesting designs. The Screwless was probably the most standout because he was the most unusual of all the kids. And then
He looked.
we mentioned the Tina Turner costume too, and that still
Hmm.
stands out as pretty interesting design.
In fact, Fury Road looks like they're going to have like a character who harkens back to Screw Loose. He's got kind of the similar
Oh, the
dark
dark
makeup
around
around
the
his eyes.
eyes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
not to
The
say that
new
it's the same
villain for the next
character.
one looks badass.
Yeah.
If that is going to be the villain, the guy with like the skull jaw,
Yeah, I
and then the
believe
dark
so.
around his
Yeah.
eyes and this flowing
Hmm.
white hair, just
Yeah.
you kind of take it back for a moment and go, "That's interesting." Okay.
Hmm. I think my least liked area of the film, I guess, is I don't know. I guess the sand pits. Those were just kind of needless,
They were needless,
dangerous
and
zones.
the only thing they provided was killing off one of the kids, so we didn't have to have him in the movie anymore, and also getting rid of a horse.
Which was kind of pointless too. I mean, we know that deserts are dangerous. Do we have to have quicksand in our deserts as well? Apparently we do, because otherwise it would be so boring just to film a bunch of people walking through the
Well,
desert.
I believe there is actually a shifting sand thing like that actually does happen in certain deserts,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure how often that actually really happens. It's mostly like collapsed in caves and stuff underground that kind of causes that stuff.
Yeah.
And it looks safe and solid, and all of a sudden you step in, and all of a sudden you start instantly sinking.
Yeah. So I guess that was my most. It was disturbing
It was
in that, but it
disturbing
was
when we lost the
also,
kid, but otherwise it seemed kind of needless and pointless.
yeah, it's like everything has to be quicksand. Like Princess Bride had quicksand, so let's put quicksand in our movie. What there's a
Because
bunch of other
Hollywood,
ones.
it made money.
Crow had quicksand, only it was in a bog. It had wet quicksand, so let's put that in the movie.
Let's put our dry quicksand in here because that can happen. Feel sorry for the kids. One of them died suffocating in sand.
Yes, that wasn't, well, and that it felt very. I guess there's a lot of the areas of this film that feel kind of emotionally manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kill the kid. Let's have the kids look all cute and awesome in front of the pig killer, so he joins their cause. Let's let's have Jebediah, is it Jedediah or Jebediah, the captain of the flight
Jebediah,
captain,
yeah,
yeah, and his son. Let's have him have a cute son so that we sympathize with them. They're not
because
jerks. They're just
because
trying to survive.
technically, Chopper Captain is now a family man,
Hmm.
and he's
Assuming
technically
it's
stealing to keep his family fed.
yeah. So yeah, this movie has it can be entertaining. It can be very
Oh, it
entertaining,
can be
especially
very
if you're
entertaining and
younger.
also very, as I mentioned, very quotable. But there's also a lot of things, and I mentioned that the designs were dry. Also, some of the writing in the later half gets kind of stilted in places, just kind of cardboard
Yeah.
cookie cutty.
Yeah,
Kind
the
of,
dialogue is strong for a good chunk of the film, but there are bits and pieces that are just don't work very well, I
and
think.
it's not so much the dialogue either. It's so much that they just kind of rewrote like sections of Mad Max 2 and just copy and pasted it into the Thunderdome script. And
Mhm.
then essentially went in there with Lord Humongous highlighted and then deleted that and put in Tina Turner.
Mhm. Hmm.
So
Yeah, Tina
yeah,
Turner, Auntie Entity is an interesting villain, but she's not very intimidating.
she's not very active as actually being a villain, other than plotting
Yeah.
schemes.
Well, I guess yeah, I take it back. She can be intimidating, like when she bites into the bit of fruit and like gives the signal to kill him. She can be fairly intimidating with that, but yeah, she's not.
And she was also again very clever in the background, trying to plot this whole thing to get rid of Blaster Master.
She won't
But
be lifting men over her head and breaking them on her knee. That's
yeah, by no means.
she's not that kind of villain.
So yeah. So final ratings then. Want to
You want
go
me to go
first?
first? I guess I can go first. Yes, this is a very watchable movie. It's very entertaining in a Hollywood sense. A lot of weird post-apocalyptic themed sets, costumes, overall story. I think they run with the theme pretty well. Even
Hmm.
though the kids, the idea of the kids surviving kind of it's a little bit weird. Like they would have to be really young since this takes place 15 plus years after the apocalypse. So the
More or
adults who
less.
left would be leaving like babies behind. Some of those kids look like they're only 8 years old. So
Hmm.
it's just like, okay, well,
Yeah, we're
maybe
not
they
entirely
just
sure of when the airplane crash happened either. So
yeah, we don't know when the airplane crashed. We don't know how long they stayed in the Oasis. We don't know, how many of them, did they conceive? They obviously conceived children after they, set up a base in the Oasis and then
yes,
left. So yeah, it's a very watchable movie, but it's also very Hollywood. It's very spit polished compared to the previous two Mad Max films. Very much more heavy on the budget. So if that kind of annoys you, if they kind of strip out the exploitation type feel of the previous films. Um, and I think that's its downfall. If you're going to skip a Mad Max movie, obviously most people are going to tell you to skip this one.
most likely.
Hmm. What about you,
Uh,
Matt?
I would
Or
rate this
Malice?
above average still, so this kind of falls between average and good in our rating system. Um, this is by no means horrible as prejudged by the rating system, but there are definitely some flaws that make this just nosedive very sharply from where it used to be with the previous movie. The fact that they went more Hollywood means yes, they got to spit shine things, but I would prefer spit shining the amount of stuff you can actually put on screen as opposed to just shining up the basic stuff you already had. I would have been putting more budget in and getting a higher amount of guys out there to actually be doing something, and then actually putting forth money to actually keep like the really interesting parts working from the previous movies. Instead, it feels like they just spat shine the effects and so forth, and then just let everything else kind of fall where it was originally, without as much individual effort, if you will, into the making of it. There are some little story flaws. There are some writing issues, and also some, probably doesn't help that we had a complete switch of director for most of the film either. So yeah, if there's anything that's kind of skippable, it might be this one, but it by no means takes away the entertainment from it. There's still some really good, fun bits in this. It still can be very entertaining if you're interested in post-apocalyptic but are interested in the light side of it, so to speak. This would probably be the go-to movie. But if you want the really serious, bleak stuff, the other previous two movies would be a better choice.
Yeah.
So that is my final thoughts on Thunderdome.
Pretty much all she wrote. Pretty much, cut straight.
Yep. So I guess that's going to be the end of this episode then. Thank you to everybody who's been watching. By all means, like, share, subscribe, and we will see you all next time.
Don't forget the Patreon. Don't forget the Patreon.
Oh, and the Patreon, of course. Don't forget the Patreon. I'll make a link somewhere, like right here or something. As I motion to some part of my screen. So yeah, by all means, share the link, and we will that'll help the show continue on, and we will try to figure out what we're going to do after we do Fury Road, hopefully next week. It sounds like you and Randy are going to go for a Tuesday, and I might be going for a weekend.
Yeah.
At some point, so we'll see.
We're getting pumped up for it.
We're getting ready. Alrighty, so see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Hey, don't you understand? This is water. You can't live without it. What's a little fallout, huh?
Remember, no matter where you go, there you are.